there are no genres of music. And when we try to fit music into these small cubby holes, we limit the humanity that can be expressed through the music. And it's the same thing that happens when we try to limit people.
Hello, and welcome to Washington Post Live. I'm Robin Givhan, Senior Critic-at-Large. And today, my guest is the prolific and talented musician and activist, Jon Batiste. And on Sunday, Batiste was part of a trio to win an Oscar for Best Original Score for the animated movie Soul. Soul also won Best Animated Feature, and it tells the story of an aspiring jazz musician. It's my pleasure to introduce Jon. Welcome him. Hi.
Hello, Robin. How are you?
I am very well. It's very nice to see you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored and grateful. The three of us put a lot of our heart and soul into the score. No pun intended.
I am curious, it was such an unusual Oscar ceremony. What was it like to be in the room and to hear your name, hear soul called, hear your name called?
It was surreal. Felt like a true milestone in so many generations of music makers in my family, so many generations of creators, and a lot of family farmers, a lot of people who come from the indigenous Louisiana, coastal Creoles, indigenous peoples. I mean, just so much has really culminated into that moment. And the music in soul being this love letter to jazz and to Black culture, and that form of musical expression being recognized in that way. It was a lot. It was a lot to process. I'm still really processing it all. And Trent and Atticus, those guys are masters at the craft, and the collaboration being so unique and innovative in that way, spanning not only jazz and Black music, but these really ethereal, celestial tapestries that they created in the way that they crossed over. It's amazing that it resonated with people in this way, because it's so different to anything that I've ever been a part of.
Well, we have this amazing video from the movie, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, I mean, your essence really is captured in the film. From your face to particularly your hands as they glide across the piano. I mean, I have to assume that in some ways that made it even more resonant to win for something like that really speaks to your humanity and, a long lineage of your family.
Oh, that really made it special upon seeing the film for the first time, the final edit. We all worked on the film for 2 years, and after 2 years you see many different edits, but the final version really was when it came to life in a way that I couldn't imagine. Just seeing all the pieces come together and seeing my hands and my essence in the main character, Joe, and seeing him play, and people who I was with, my partner and all of my friends who saw the film, they saw me in this character, and it was so emotional to see it come to life on the screen. And as the narrative unfolds and you see how the music comes together as a character in the film and is so prominent in telling the story, it really meant a lot, because it was more than just scoring a film. It was really putting a piece of yourself into a film that is going to be there for all time. Every age watches Pixar films. Every culture embraces those narratives. They're kind of like modern mythology. They're our contemporary mythology in a lot of ways. And to be at the center of that as a part of this main character's essence, it really meant a lot to me.
And to bring jazz into that vernacular of animation, I mean, my colleague, Michael Kavna, talked about how the film, through sort of the metaphor of jazz, really encourages people to think about the improvisational moments in their daily life. I mean, how challenging was it to create music for a film versus when you're working, on a personal project like an album? I mean, do you think about it in a different way? I mean, it's obviously there's storytelling there.
Well, that's one of the things that I really love about making music for film and TV, and the stories that go with that is I'm in essence always creating a story with my music. I think about life more than I think about music. I think that for me, music reflects life. So I'm making a song or I make an album, I have a story that's behind it, even if it's not explicitly delivered in the song lyric, or if it's not something that the public is aware of. I'm always thinking of characters, and I'm always thinking of things that happened to me in my life, or stories that I'm making up in my mind. And when you actually have a script and characters and a narrative that's laid out for you, that's the kind of stuff that inspires me in general. I love that kind of stimulus. So there's not much of a difference there. It's just the parameters are a lot more clear when you're not the one creating the story. Then it can't really change very much.
One of the things that you said in your acceptance speech was you talked about the idea of everyone is working with the same 12 notes. And you are obviously, connecting that to music, but it feels like it resonates so far beyond that there is this sort of connective storytelling aspect that bridges many divides.
Absolutely. I think that we have, in discovering the human genome and studying that, we see how much there is connectivity between us over time, across race, across culture. And there's a really deep understanding that with notes of music, you can express your individuality, the thing that makes your culture and your people beautiful and your story. But it's still the same 12 notes that somebody else is using to express themselves. And that's how we are as people. We have the same desires, we have the same human needs, we have the same factory settings, and how we program that and how we use that is the beauty of life, and that's found in the mundane everyday things. It's our friendships, and it's in our family, and all of our hobbies, and just the basic things that aren't going on stage to accept the Oscar. It could be learning to ride a bike, or simple thing, and that's it.
I mean, when in that same vein, you have a new album, and one of the songs is called I Need You. And in one of your descriptions, you talked about how you started with this bass line that you can hear in rock and blues and soul. Can you just sort of talk about the experience of putting together this video? And I'm curious if you weighed in on the fashion, on the art, on all of it.
I was really, really excited to do this video because it brings together this old style of dance, the Lindy Hop and the jitterbug, this early form of Black social dance and Black social music that is in that style of the original rock and rollers, Lil Richard, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, boom, 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 and put that in a modern context. And I worked with some incredible collaborators. My brother Jamel McWilliams, incredible choreographer, and Alan Ferguson, the director. We were the brain trust behind all of that you see there. We sat and we said the first thing that we want people to feel when they watch this is this overwhelming sense of joy. No matter if you know the song, no matter if you like dance, no matter if you like this kind of sort of music video presentation, if you've never watched a video in your life, whatever you are coming from, whatever orientation you're coming from, you're gonna watch this and feel just this overwhelming joy. And then from there, all of the decisions were made. You know, just the concept, the story of, you know, being in this art gallery, and the music is also just, you know, it's a form of art. You know, there's a picture in the video, and the dancers jump from the picture, and in the picture they're in the 30s. You know, and that kind of was a metaphor within a metaphor. Uh, there's just so many little things like that in there. And the shirt that I'm wearing is this old kind of vintage shirt that my grandfather would wear. Um, and it just there's a lot of things like that that are really special to me, and you may not know that are special to Alan or special to Jamel, and when you watch it you feel it, and that gives you that sense of joy and that feeling of being at home, coupled with the song, you know, something that I worked on. One of the first things that we finished for the album, it really kind of set the tone for what it is that I think the world wants to feel right now. There's a certain feeling that we're missing. There's a void that we want to fill with this kind of music and this kind of art and this kind of dance, you know. So yeah, thank you for checking that out.
No, I mean, it's an absolutely infectious song, and you're right. I mean, it brings so much joy. And, you know, it's been a year. I'll leave it at that. And you have really been, you know, you were out there, you were marching, you were protesting. I mean, what moved you to take to the streets?
I wanted to exist in a space that made sense for what it is that I have to contribute to society. And everybody can contribute different things, and it's not everybody's calling to be out in the street. But for me, I felt that it was a culmination of so much of my work and all the other times that I've shared my music in public spaces in hopes of bringing a sense of community and reaffirming humanity. This felt like the right moment, more so than almost any other moment in the time that I've presented my art in that way. It felt like the thing to do, to really speak to the people who were there, that were holding on to such anguish and pain, and give them a balm, something that will give people who are seeing the news and there's this polarizing, divisive view that just breeds anger and apathy. And I felt like what we did was it was a vaccine for that. It was a way to get people out of that space and to look at things from a more nuanced perspective, and also to, in a more practical sense, to point people towards the voting booth. Because at that time, one of the things that I was saying, and one of the things that was really urgent, was this election, this presidential election, that you know, we see the result, but at the time, you know, we were headed towards this historic election, and you had over 100 million people who didn't vote in the prior election that were eligible to vote. You know, over 40% of Americans. And that overwhelming sense of apathy, coupled with that overwhelming sense of anguish and despair from COVID, from Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, just the wave of negativity. There needed to be something to push back against that while still moving forward. And that's what I wanted to represent with all the things that we led, whether it was the protests, the voter registration rallies, you know, there's so many things that we did at that time that I felt really helped a lot of people, and I'm very proud of that.
Was there a connection at all to your New Orleans roots and what I always think of as this incredible ability of New Orleanians to sort of see their way through hardship and sadness through the joy of music, and through the connection that people get from music and food and just being in the space with other people?
Yes, absolutely. And New Orleans is what I call one of it's the home of what I call social music, or one of the homes of social music in the world today. Social music is this form of expression, the form of music that existed before music was commodified and, you know, sold or put on CDs and T-shirts and streaming and all these things. What was music when it was a part of the fabric of everyday life? You know, what was music back in Africa in the drum circles? Or, you know, what was music when you go to Cuba? You still see there's the rumba sessions. Or if you go to different parts of the world, there's still music as a part of everyday life. And New Orleans is one of those few places, and that's what music is used for. It's a lot of times used in worship, or it's a ritual. It's a form of ritual that is about transmutating things. Transmute, like you see that when someone passes away, there's a way that we go and we march and we celebrate their life, and people are joyous at the funeral. And there's music for everything, and it's stitched into life, and everybody sees music as more than just entertainment. So that's really what it's about for me when I'm doing these street performances, is bringing back social music and remembering the power of music as something in everyday life and in community, and not just as a form of entertainment or a commodity.
I know that many musicians, and certainly there's a history of music within various protest movements, and there's always this the conversation about music's ability to reflect the times. I'm wondering, do you think that music has the ability to change the times, to alter the tenor of the times?
Oh, I think that music, more so than any of the other forms of creative expression, has that ability to change the times because it moves rapidly. It speaks quickly. You hear a song and you can feel it immediately. There's nothing that needs to be translated to you. And once you feel that feeling is transferable. You know, if you hear Sam Cooke, Change Gonna Come, you know, Kendrick Lamar, We Gonna Be All Right. Just songs, all the songs from the spirituals and the protest songs that Dr. King and John Lewis would sing, and you hear all of these things and they still have so much power in them. And when you hear them at the right time, in the right moment in time, then you have a feeling of whether it's inspiration, whether it's a feeling of being motivated to do something, or you feel a need to release, and there's a catharsis. Sometimes we just need to cry and release the tension of the moment. But then from that point, you can transfer that energy to whoever is in your community or whoever you're around, and that becomes exponential. It compounds, and that's a beautiful thing when you see a song be the catalyst for a change in time.
I'm curious, when you heard the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial, how did you respond to that? I mean, was there any music that went through your mind as you heard that verdict?
Well, that verdict is a very, very strong message to everyone who was out in the streets protesting, and everyone who was speaking out, that push and that way of vocalizing concern and intention mattered. It really had an impact. I think it was impossible for everything that has gone on this past summer to not have impacted that verdict, along with the evidence and everything that we had with the videotape. So I really think that it was not a song that I thought of, but the whole world, seeing everybody around the world marching. You've seen people in all different parts of the world marching, and every action has a reaction, and that was the reaction. That sets a tone for what's to come. It's not that we don't have more that we can improve upon in our systems, in our processes, but it shows that there was a point to it. There was a purpose to everything that happened this summer.
One of the things that you have talked about is the need to rework the Star-Spangled Banner. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about why you think that is necessary, and if your thoughts have, you know, changed, evolved over this last year.
I find that reworking a song is a great way of giving people a perspective, a new perspective on life, or a scenario that they may have in some ways taken for granted or taken as known. You know, America has a really complex history, and that song, being the song that represents the American ideal as our anthem, could speak to America in that history more aptly, more astutely. And if you were able to do that in an arrangement, I thought it could be really powerful for people at this time, when we're really questioning a lot of our systems. We're questioning a lot of what has happened in the past to lead us to this point, and we're trying to also excavate a lot of things in the past that have been covered, or that have been done in a way that, if we were to do them today, you know, if we were to write the Constitution today, or if we were to write the anthem today, what we want it to represent that it doesn't represent, and what will we amend? And I think that that's a powerful thing to do in music and in art first. And a lot of times that's what happens. Artists continually lead the way in an almost prophetic sort of projection of where things could go, or where things eventually will go. So that's what I think the arrangement was about in the first place. And then I had the opportunity to play it at the reopening of the NBA season this season, and you know, that was just a powerful moment to unveil this arrangement that showed the tension between blending Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is known as the Black National Anthem, and Francis Scott Key's Star-Spangled Banner, and creating an arrangement where they're playing parallel to each other and in harmony with each other at different tempos, which, you know, the polyrhythmic sort of approach of 2 against 3, or 3 against 4, however you want to conceptualize it, is very African. And there's many different tonal allegories within that arrangement that I think are it just goes deeper and deeper the more you go into it and analyze it musically. But when you hear it, you don't have to know any of that to hear its symbolism. And that's why I really thought it would be a good idea to perform that at the opening of the NBA season.
And there are moments when it sounds like they're in conflict with each other to some degree, which is part of the ever-evolving jazz-like improvisation of the country, it seems.
Well, the conflict is built in. When you build a country, when you build a country that's based on functioning by compromise and by constant negotiation and constant pushing on either side of the aisle, or even within Congress, and in the way that is built to work, is going to breed tension. It's going to breed a lot of tension, and things won't be resolved quickly all the time. And that's the thing. It's a marathon, you know, it's not a sprint. And that was represented in the arrangement.
Well, before we go, I would love to just get to a couple of audience questions, one of which is from Christine Spanier, I think is how it's pronounced, from Oregon. And she wants to know, and I think probably a lot of people do, there is so much joy and hope that comes through in your music. How do you keep hopeful and encouraged in these times?
Oh, prayer, friendship, having good friends, having good good downtime, and really disconnecting. I think a lot of stuff that we go through is internal, and the internal life that we live, it breeds external traumas and events that, you know, again, that's exponential as well. We pass that on to other people. And I think in this time where everything is happening, we can get all of this stimulus at all times. We got to give it a break. And we got to find a way to disconnect. and that gives me that's my constant push. That's my constant agenda for myself, is to balance the input with the output. And a lot of what we're dealing with now is, as a society, trying to figure out how to balance all of, we got the technology, we have so
Too
much
much
that's happening,
technology sometimes.
you know. It's a lot. So the balance is where the joy can come from, I believe.
And another question from California, Elizabeth Kenoff would like to know, here's that usual question. If you could tell students of color one thing about breaking into the entertainment industry, what would you tell them is key?
One thing into the, man, that's a,
You could tell them too.
yes. Okay. Um, be yourself. Don't don't change or try to make yourself fit into something that doesn't feel right on a gut level. I mean, just trusting that instinct, um, which I think happens more so to artists of color and women. There's a, I don't even want to necessarily say it's systemic, but it's something that we as a society are still reckoning with, in trying to understand where people of color, black genius, genius of a woman, where does that fit, and how do we perceive that? how does that exist without us feeling uncomfortable? Um, and I think it's better to push into that instead of being deferential, um, because I think at the end of the day, you belong where you belong, and you have to own that, and that's important for you to know when you might be in spaces where that may seem like it's not right. Um, just own that, and again, I would say the same thing as my other tip: balance. Have good relationships with people you collaborate with. Be a good person first. you know, um, always lead with quality and being a good person, and then a lot of things will get out of the way. That's it.
Sounds like very good advice. Well, John, I know that you have many, many things that you have to get to still today. So I do appreciate your taking time to spend with us. And again, congratulations on the Oscar win.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. You are the best. I'm grateful to be here with you, and next time in person, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. And please join me on Thursday at 11 a.m. for a program about what's next in retail. I'll be speaking with Philip Krim, the founder of and CEO of Casper, among others. Have a great day. Thank you.